Hi, I'm Kelly Corbett and I am the Training and Quality Manager at Little Angels. I have decided to put together a PowerPoint on advice and guidance for children under 2 years. I think as a mum myself of a 1-year-old, I just thought it'd be really nice to put something together at the moment, particularly with the COVID and the pandemic, on lots of questions that I myself have, parents might have, carers might have, on things that we need to know for under twos. I feel the support myself hasn't been there as much as it should be because of COVID. So I've just put together this latest advice um, and current updates on everything I feel you need to know for an under 2-year-old. So I hope you find it helpful to go through each area, and you might know it, but it's there anyway for that advice and guidance that you might need. So enjoy, and we shall have a look at each of the areas. Thank you. So the first slide I have here is sterilising and teat sizes. So there's lots of different equipment that we use, particularly for children under 1. You might have bottles if they're being bottle fed. They might have comforters such as dummies. They have cups. They might have water in. And all of these equipments that are being used needs to be sterilised. There are a huge, variety of sterilisers out there. Some you can put in the microwave. There are some that I know the one I had was electric, and you just put a bit of water in the bottom, put all your bottles in, press start, and it took, I think, 5-10 minutes to do. You can also get sterilisers where you put Milton tablets in, which last a good 12 hours if you keep all the equipment in there. We tend to use this one in our yellow room so that overnight the things are sterilised, and then the next day we empty it and we re-sterilise. So we have the equipment there ready to go as soon as the children are in. Once they have turned 1, you do not need to sterilise anymore. You probably think, well, I thought anyway, being a 1-year-old, my little boy was putting things in his mouth all the time for about 6-7 months. And I thought, why do I sterilise? But it's still important to do that. But any time after the age of 1, you do not need to do this anymore. You can, once the bottles are sterilised, as long as you seal them, you can put them in the fridge. Like I said, some you can leave in the steriliser. They are sterile up to 24 hours. However, it is recommended to use them straight away if possible. But as busy parents, I know that isn't always possible. So for me, I found if I sterilised in the morning and then kept them all in there, that it worked for me being a busy mum, that I had them sterilised throughout the day then. They didn't need to keep doing it. So it's whatever works for you, although the recommendation is to use it straight away. You will see if you are using bottles that they all do have different numbers on the teats, and this determines the flow of milk. Now, say you had a teat that was 1, the hole in the teat is not as large, which means it doesn't come out as fast flowing, which is good because then the baby can take the milk that they need. If it is too fast flowing and you went to a larger teat, you would know, because the baby would be pretty much choking every time you were trying to feed them, because the fast flow of the milk would be going too fast into their mouth and into the back of their throat. On the other side of it, if you keep a child on there too long, on say size 1, and they should be going up to size 2, then they could be inhaling a lot of, not inhaling, sorry, they could be sucking in a lot of air, because they are then trying to suck as hard as possible to get the milk, because it's not coming out quick enough for them as they get older, which of course you don't want that to do, because it causes a lot of wind, it could cause them pain. I have put a picture on here, as you can see. It does I mean, you might not be using Tommy Tippy, but they all pretty much are the same. It does tell you roughly when you need to move on, at what age you need to move on to the next teat. But as a parent, um, user initiative, it might be that you change them at 4 or 5 months. That's absolutely fine. So again, that is recommended. So now on to nappies and pull-ups. So you can get many types of nappies, including disposable, pull-ups and reusable ones. So with the disposable, you can get many different brands from a variety of shops. So it's your preference as to what you feel works the best for your individual child. You can also get nighttime nappies, which are quite good if you find your child seems to have very wet nappies through the night. They're less likely to leak, because they're more absorbent. With the pull-ups, they are really good for encouraging independence and easy access when you need it. And then with the reusable nappies, once your child has wet or soiled them, they can be bagged up and rewashed. So very good for the environment, very eco-friendly. So that's great. With children, it's recommended that they have their nappy changed every 3 to 4 hours, unless they have soiled and they would need to be changed straight away. Some children need to be changed quite frequently. Others don't tend to wet their nappy as much, so they don't need to be. But normally you can tell by just squidging the front of their nappy to see if they need to or not. And with some nappies, and particularly the pull-ups, they sometimes have a line on which is yellow, and when they wet they turn blue, so you can see that way. The nappies can come in a range of different sizes, starting with newborn all the way up. So to make sure you have the correct fitting nappy, just make sure it's, if the tabs aren't pulling sort of over and they're literally on the edge of the nappy and the legs is quite snug around the legs, quite tight, then that shows you it's too small, and it's more likely to then leak because it can't hold the contents as well, which isn't cost effective, as then you're going to be going through more nappies through the day. And also on the opposite side of that, you've then got large, they're too big for the child, then they're not going to fit around the leg again, which means they're leaking because they're not holding the contents in. So it's really important to just make sure it's nicely fitted around the legs and the tabs sort of halfway over. Pull-ups are really good for encouraging independence. If you have a child that you're trying to get dry through the night and you need to take them to the toilet through the night, then they are really good to not disturb them too much, because you can just pull them down like pants. I do, when I was training to be a nursery nurse, I was told if you are toilet training, firstly, the child will tell you when they're ready, because they will recognise that they've done it and they will come and tell you. And also they might not want to be in the nappy. And secondly, they might start actually, if you sit them on the potty or the toilet now and again, they might start to do it. So that is really good signs. But I was told when toilet training, and it might have changed, that it's best to go straight to pants. Then when children do wet themselves, they have an accident, they have that feeling, and they know the consequence of wetting themselves, because it will all be down their leg and they will feel very uncomfortable that their clothes are wet. So then they learn what happens. But I do understand sometimes pull-ups, are sort of a first option to get them used to, pulling down their pants. So they would just do a pull-up instead. So it's whatever works for you. You can also get a variety of wipes. There's sensitive wipes, there's fragrant wipes. You can get the water wipes, which have no sort of fragrance at all in them. You can also use cotton wool and water if you wish. So there are many different types of wipes out there. So it's whatever suits you and your child. I know I use some particular wipes, and my little boy, it kept bringing up in a bit of a nappy rash. So I then changed it to the more sensitive ones, which he has got on a lot better with. So sometimes it's just trial and error. Following on from nappies, we're going to go on to nappy rash and creams. So sometimes children can get quite sore around their bottom area. I've seen, red raw before, and the child, you know, is really in pain when you're trying to wipe them, and it can be awful for them, bless them. So there are many creams out there that you can use for nappy rash. So I've put a picture here of the three main ones, although I'm sure there are many more out there. But they're all really good. I must say, from my personal experience with having a very bad nappy rash, I have found that the yellow one, Metanium, is the best for clearing it. Both my children get quite sore. Even my child who's 5, now she's at school, you know, she hasn't quite wiped herself properly. She does get sore as well. So I found just putting a bit of Metanium on is excellent, and by the morning sometimes it's cleared it completely. The only thing with the Metanium is, because it's yellow, it can stain quite a lot. So just be aware of that. Also, if they're quite sore, then I would say obviously having regular baths can help to soothe that area, particularly if it's sore. Also, changing their nappy more regularly so they're not sat in stale wee or a poo, you know, for too long can help. And when it's really bad, I always find using wet wipes can make it even worse. So, you know, even a really soft warm flannel to wipe them, or cotton wool and hot water, it could be better than using wet wipes just while they're really, really sore. And I have put here, if it's really warm outside, then let them run around naked, let them get some fresh air around that area. I understand, like, you wouldn't want to do that in your house and have probably any accidents all over the place, but if it's in the garden, it's the summer, let them run naked, and that would hopefully help to clear it as well. But like I said, there's no particular cream that you can use. I mean, there's, like I said, there might be other ones out there, but for me, the Metanium was the best for clearing up my children's nappy rash. Okay, so we're on to teething and brushing teeth. So, children can teeth from the day they are born, and I have known it that children and babies, well, some newborn babies can be born with teeth already. So, yeah. Now, there are many signs of teething. Honestly, teething in my mind seems to be going on and on. They have to get their 20 teeth. My little boy is 14 months, and I think he's now got to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 teeth. And this has been going on since he was 5 months. And it just seems to keep going and going and going. Some babies might not get teeth till they're over a year. Some don't get them at all till over a year. So don't panic if your child's 1 and over and still hasn't got any. They just come in their own time. And bless them, they might get them all at once, which, you know, does happen. So there are signs of teething, lots of dribbling. So I find that I'm constantly going through dribble bibs. But I have to regularly change them because they get so wet. And then he begins to get a bit of a rash under his chin. So it's really important that you change it. If you do find they are getting a bit of a rash under their chin where it is wet, I found just putting a little bit of sort of Vaseline or like that kind of thing on that bit of skin, so it acts as a barrier. So you could do that. Rash around the mouth and in the nappy area, so you might find there's a little spots around in those areas. Generally not very happy in themselves. I mean, it must be so painful, mustn't it, when the teeth are coming up gradually and then they break through the skin. I can imagine it being very sore. I know it's like when you've got toothache, let alone a tooth actually splitting through the gum. So I'm not surprised they're not very happy. Fingers in the mouth or anything they can find, like they're constantly chewing on things or wanting stuff in their mouth just to almost relieve the pressure on their gums. Tender gums. Flushed cheeks is another sign that they might have. Lots of crying, because like I said, they will be in pain, bless them, so it's not the nicest thing. You might find they were brilliant at sleeping and all of a sudden that they aren't sleeping very well, and again, this can be the cause of teething. you know, it might disturb their sleep. They might be in pain. So you might have a few sleepless nights with them. Lack of appetite as well can be one because, you know, if it is really sore in their gum, they might not want the usual foods that they have, or might not be as hungry because it is sore. So continuing on with the teething and brushing teeth. So you can get many teething gels and liquids or teething crystals out there to relieve teething. There's also paracetamol you can give your child as well if you feel that helps. And there's also teething rings, chilled foods such as cucumber and ice pops. So the Ashton and Parsons infants powder, which I've just, again, like I said, put a few on here, but there are other ones out there. That's more of a herbal type of teething powder. Now, just be careful with that one because my little boy has a dairy allergy, and I have a feeling there was something in that one relating to dairy. So just double check with that one on the ingredients if your child does have a dairy allergy. There are other ones out there like Bonjela. You can get that teething gel. I use the Ambisol teething gel. That's more of a medicated one. I think you have to buy that over the counter, but it completely numbs the gum, and I have found that the most effective with my little one. They're also obviously giving him paracetamol here and there. Teething rings I've been putting in the freezer, so it's really nice and cold on his gums, and like having cold cucumber just to gnaw on and chew, and ice pops are really great in just relieving the symptoms just that little bit. As soon as a child gets their teeth, you should begin brushing twice a day like you would for yourself. So when that child wakes up in the morning, that's the first thing they should be doing, is brushing their teeth. And also last thing at night before they go to bed. And there are toothpaste for 0 to 2 and the brushes that go with it, which you can buy. Quite interestingly, I spoke to a community nurse and I was giving my child a bottle before bed, and she then asked me if I brushed his teeth after, and I said, well, no, because he brushes his teeth, and then the last thing is I sit in a chair, give him the milk and put him down to bed. And she said that wasn't very good at all for his oral health. So now I've changed that pattern, so he has his milk a bit earlier. We brush teeth, have a story, and go to bed so that there's no, you know, bacteria or anything on the teeth before he goes to sleep. So safe sleeping, this is really important to follow the guidelines on safe sleeping. So in the first 6 months of your child's life, they should be in your room alongside you. And then after the 6 months, they are then able to move into their own bedroom. Now, it's quite daunting when you've had them with you the whole time, and then they suddenly aren't there and they're in their own room, but there are ways you can monitor them. So you can get lots of different monitors out there. So I have one that's just sound, so I have it right next to my bed, so I can hear my little one in his room, and the monitor I have also has like a temperature on it and a night light, so it's really good, which I keep on most of the night. You can also get the video ones as well, where you can actually see them in their room and what they're doing in their cot, so they're also good to see what's happening. The guidance on safe sleep is to either put your child in a sleeping bag or to use blankets and sheets. We tend to use blankets and sheets in the yellow room, but we are quite open for you to bring a sleeping bag for your child if that's what you wish. With the blankets and sheets, when you are putting these over your child, you need to make sure that your child's feet are right at the bottom of the cot so that they can't move down any further, and then put the blankets over them there and tuck them in. The reason why it's right at the bottom is so that if your child is wriggling in the night, they can't under the blankets because there's nowhere further for them to go down. So it might be strange that they're right down at the bottom of the cot, but it is the safest way for them to sleep. And also you might want to get a blanket, if you wish, that's like a bit like a holdy blanket, so that it's not sort of, with the air and ventilation, or if you're worried. I put an image here of what is safe sleep and what they recommend that isn't. So if you look, they're kind of basically saying no sleeping in the bed with you, no pillows. You can introduce pillows and duvets from 12 to 18 months. However, I feel if they're quite happy how they are, then the later the better, I think, personally. So no, loose blankets, no bumpers, no like toys, so nothing that can cause suffocation. So the safest way is blankets in a sleeping bag, a cot with a waterproof sheet under the cot sheet. This is great for ventilation, and and obviously no elevation, so a flat mattress. So that is the recommendation for safe sleep. So continuing on with the safe sleeping, a safe room temperature is anywhere between 16 to 20 Celsius, with the ideal being 18. Can't always, get it to that. I mean, in my little one's room, it's always, I would say, 21. I can't really ever get it that much lower. But it's really good. I found this image here. If you are using a sleeping bag, because sometimes you just don't know how to dress them, do you, for bed? Because it's really warm when you go to bed, and then in the night you feel like the temperature drops a bit. So it's quite difficult. Sometimes you're like, are they going to be cold? Are they going to be too hot? So this is a really good recommendation if with the temperatures, the types of clothing they should be in, with what tog of sleeping bag. So as you can see, it goes from 0.5 right up to 3.5. So that's really, really useful, I found. A great website I've put on here is the Lullaby Trust. It's fantastic. If you want any answers on safe sleeping or any advice and information, I recommend you look at this. You might not be able to click on the link if you're playing this in slideshow, but afterwards, if you just go back to the individual slides, you should be able to click on it, and it has got some fantastic advice and support for families. So please have a look at this if you've got time. Comforters and dummies. So there are many, many forms of comforters and dummies. There's different types of dummies. Some children have teddies, some have like muzzies, blankets. So there's lots of different things that children almost pick themselves to what they feel is their comforter. They can help children settle and give them the comfort they need when they are feeling a bit worried or anxious, or it might just be that something that they associate with sleep time. So, it's important that they have these comforters and dummies if it causes them to feel more comfortable in their environment. So I find as well, when we have a lot of children start at the nursery, they do heavily rely on the comforters and dummies to begin with, because it's something familiar to them. It's something from a home, and if they are worried and anxious, it gives them that comfort and support that they need. As they do become more settled and more confident, you tend to find that you suddenly find the comforters or the dummy on the floor or being left, which is a great sign that they are less worried and less anxious, and they're beginning to feel more comfortable in their surroundings. So we always see that as a really, really good sign. And when they are happy, we don't want it to become a habit, so we do encourage them to take the dummy out, or put their comforter in their drawer if they want, and then maybe just have it at sleep time if they wish, so that they are interacting and engaging, and it's not something that is with them all the time. And having, if they have got a dummy, it's quite important to encourage them, not to have it when they don't need it necessarily. partly because of their oral health. They say dummies aren't great for the teeth, and also it could stop their speech and language, and it might delay that, because if they've got a dummy in their mouth, they're less likely to communicate and babble and do things like that. So it's really important that we try and only encourage these at certain times. But we are aware, obviously, when they do start, or in a new situation, that it is really important that they have these to help with the settling in process. Weaning and food. I absolutely love this part when your child begins to have different foods. It's quite exciting, isn't it, to try them on all these different things. It is advised that children start weaning from around 6 months. However, it might differ for individual children, but your health visitor would be great in giving advice if you feel that they need it a bit earlier or a bit later. So you can either speak to them or speak to us about that. There are different types of weaning. There's the baby-led weaning, which you might have heard of, which is very much, if you look at the image on the right, it's where you give them whole things, softened definitely if there's sort of like cooked carrot and cooked broccoli, so it's not hard. And they hold it in their hand and they pick it up and they feed themselves and do it that way. There's also the weaning, which is almost led by you, where you puree, as you can see, veg and fruit down into ice cube trays, and you can freeze these, and then you give them this completely pureed down food. Either way is completely fine. It's whatever your preference is. You tend to start some parent carers like to start with baby rice and then introduce some veg to begin with, and then tend to go on to the fruit after, so they're getting the sweet once they've got used to the veg. Then as they start to enjoy this a bit later on, you can then start to introduce the dairy and the meat, but this is further on down the line when they're that little bit older, around the 7 to 8 month mark. But there is a fantastic website which answers these questions, which is the Start for Life website, which is completed by the NHS. So if you're not sure, it could be, you go from one meal to suddenly, when do I go to the 2 meals and the 3 meals? So it gives you advice on that, and it also gives you recipe advice if you're not sure what to be giving your child. So it gives you lots of tips and advice on that. So definitely it is worth a look. And as they start enjoying these foods, some they might spit out in the beginning, or they might not like the texture of it, but it is a well-known fact that it takes up to 12 times for a child to really know if they like something, and anywhere up to 30 times. So in the beginning they might not think that they like it, but it's something, if it was me, I'd keep giving it to them to definitely, make sure, because like I said, if it takes 12 times, it's important that you keep repeating it, as their taste buds will change. So continuing on from the previous slide, by the time the child is around the age of 1, they're normally going to be on about 3 meals a day with snacks, mid-morning, mid-afternoon. They may still be having a little bit of milk, but you might find that they've completely reduced the milk that they now want. They're not really having their bottles anymore. I know with my little one, he literally has 1 bottle of milk now before bed, and that is it. If you're concerned that they're not having their milk so much, because milk is quite filling as well as the food, then you could offer them a cup of milk with their snack if you want them to still have that bit of dairy. But don't be concerned if they've dropped their milk completely, because the solid foods are now your child's main source of energy and nutrition, and also they're getting the dairy now through the cheese and the yogurts that they're having. So don't sort of panic. I have put the Eat Well plate for your child on here for you to have a look at. Definitely you know, portion size is a big thing, and what they're having. We have a menu at Little Angels, so please feel free to have a look at that if you're struggling for ideas of what to give your child. All I would say is never overfill a child's plate. It can be really daunting if a child's plate is completely full. It's better to have less on the plate and then give them seconds, because it's more appealing to them and it's more attractive. And this is a time, that you definitely encourage them to start feeding themselves, giving them utensils to use. Whether they use it or not, that's entirely up to them, but they're there and they will start to learn. And yeah, introduce lots of different things. As you can see here on the Eat Well plate, they're showing you roughly the portion sizes and the different food groups that you can give your child. But yes, please ask us for advice if you want any ideas on things that you can be feeding your children. So on to vitamins. I feel this subject maybe isn't pushed as much as it should be. I'm going to admit, until fairly recently, I wasn't particularly aware of vitamins as much, and I'm on my second child. It was never really picked up. But this time it has been. So I just wanted to share this with you, that it is recommended that from 6 months to 5 years that children are given vitamins every day. So with breastfed babies, they should be given a daily vitamin D supplement, to help with, and I think, you can get drops, actually, baby D drops or something like that you can give your baby. So that is recommended for them, whether or not you're taking a supplement containing vitamin D yourself. Babies having infant formula, it's not, they shouldn't be given these vitamin supplements. And I think this is maybe why I missed it, because I formula fed both of them. And then when they came off the formula, when they were over a year, I sort of didn't really think anything about vitamins at the time. So definitely something to be aware of. So there are many vitamins out there, different children's vitamins. So my 5-year-old now has vitamins, and my other one will start vitamins once it's off the formula milk. So it's just really important to make sure you're aware of this, as it, like I said, I didn't feel it was promoted so much to me as a mum. So yeah, so that's all about vitamins. So going on to drinks. So baby's main source of fluid at the early stages is milk, whether it be formula or breast milk. So they say they don't really need so much water in the beginning because it's contained within the milk they're having. But as they get older, water can be introduced, and they say that babies can have boiled cooled water as well alongside the milk. I think I started mine from about 3 months, just give them sips here and there, especially in the summer. And then after 6 months, it doesn't actually have to be boiled anymore. So you can just then give them tap water. There's lots of different cups, as you can see below. There's ones where they can sip out of it, and there's straws. The one we use in the yellow room, and I should say all the other rooms really, apart from teal, is the cup on the right, the green one. So it's encouraging them to sip out of a cup. So they're getting that sipping motion. I think that's called a Munchkin cup, that one on the right. But that's the one we have at the setting, if you wanted to also duplicate that one at home. And as babies begin to wean and start to eat more food, you may find, like I said earlier, the milk feeds begin to get less and they might just want water. If you are bottle feeding and you're finding you're dropping the bottles, you might feel like you want to give them a cup of milk instead. So they're not having it in a bottle anymore, but they're having it in a cup. There are also other things that you can give children. There's children's sort of baby squash that you can dilute down. You could also dilute orange juice or apple juice into, with water. So there's lots of different drinks that they can have. Feet measuring and shoes. It's so exciting when you can go and buy their first pair of shoes. I just love that when you can take them to the shoe shop. Um, Obviously not in the current situation. And you can go and get their feet measured and they get their first pair of shoes. Now, children before they walk tend not to wear shoes because they don't need them. But when they are going out, I know their feet can get a little bit cold, especially if they're sat in the pushchair. So if this is the case, you can get the soft sole shoes, which are, I've put a little picture of an example in the middle there, where they're just a soft sole and they can bend and they're flexible to their feet as they're developing and growing. You can also get the socks with the grips on. So when my little one started walking, he was still quite wobbly and getting to grips with it all. But because we've got wooden flooring, he was just slipping all over the place. So yeah, you can get the socks with grips on, which are really helpful, or you can get like little soft slippers with like a rubber sole on for in the house. And that can obviously support them and keep them safe when they're trying to learn to walk inside. Once they do start walking, it is recommended that you don't go and buy shoes straight away. You let them walk for a good few weeks before you then go and buy and get their shoes fitted. And then these shoes will change to hard soles to support them when they're walking. And obviously when they go outside, you need the hard soles rather than the soft soles where the wet can soak through into their feet. So it's really important that you go and get their feet measured properly and get proper fitted shoes. For the new exciting venture of them walking. So tummy time, lovely this is, especially with helping with development. Some babies love it, other babies are just not keen on it at all. I mean, both mine hated tummy time. But it is really great for them. So if they aren't enjoying it in the beginning, don't do it for too long. Just a couple of minutes on their front and then stop it and build this up throughout the day, just at specific times through the day, just a couple of minutes here and there. And the more you build it up, the more they'll get used to it, and hopefully the more they will begin to enjoy it. So it is such a great benefit for children. What I would say is don't do tummy time if they're due a nappy change or they're tired or they need feeding, because they won't enjoy it. It's something, that is great for bonding with your baby. As you can see in the picture, if you can also lay on the floor looking at them like this lady is in this picture, they're more likely to try and lift their head to see you, which is then strengthening their neck muscles and also getting them to engage in the surroundings around them. With strengthening these muscles, it then supports their overall development going forward. So these muscles are then used for the crawling that you'll see, them pulling themselves up, and it can also help with one of their first milestones, which is the rolling over. So it is really, really important to try and do this. So if you are trying to do this with your child, just remember it is really tiring because of the muscles they're using. So just supervise them at all times when you're doing it. And like I said, limit the time to just a few minutes. And put some little toys around for them to look at, to engage them. And you will find it really does benefit them. So that is tummy time. So immunisations. So when your child is born, you will receive your red book, which is your personal child health record, and this will go everywhere with you. So in here, in the red book, it does have a whole chapter on immunisations, and it will tell you when they'll be offered. Here's a little table also to show you. Although immunisations are not mandatory, you are advised your children to have them to make sure they are protected from the many different diseases that are out there. Some children can become slightly poorly with some of the vaccines that are given, particularly when they get the meningitis one. So it is recommended that paracetamol is given. You will get a leaflet on this, and the nurse will talk to you all about it when you go for your vaccinations. When your baby is due the immunisations, you will receive a letter in the post from your GP to remind you of this, so that it's not another thing for you to have to remember. So you will be aware of this. Looking at this table, the 12 to 13 months one, they do in one sitting, so they tend to go together. So you might find that your 12-month jab, they will do just after their 12 months, so that the 12 and 13 can be done in one go. I think the most injections they tend to get in one sitting is 4, and I believe that is at the 3-month one and the 12-month one. So that's 4 injections that they have to have. It's not nice taking a child to have these immunisations, but like I said, it is advised and it is important to protect them. And then once you take your red book with you every time they are vaccinated, they then write this in the red book, just so that they know they're up to date with the immunisations. So with routine and structure, it's really important for children that they have routine and structure, and that it is consistent in their day-to-day lives. I love this image because it's got a watch on. Now, children under 2 cannot tell the time. However, they can tell the time through the routine of the day. So although they can't tell the time, if they have a consistent routine and structure through their day, they start to learn what comes next. So they know what to expect. If they are able to do this and they have this put in place, you'll find they're a lot more happier, they're a lot more settled, because they know that after they've had their dinner, mum picks up, or after lunch, it's always time for my nap. So they start to know what happens in the day. And this is also the same for the bedtime routine, that it's just important for them to have that routine in place so that they know what the expectation is. They are happier when they know what's going on and what is being done. And you'll find in the yellow room, when your child starts, it is really important that you tell us the routine and structure you have, so that between the setting and yourself, we try and get, a happy balance so that the children know what comes next. But I will say, even in the yellow room, we do have a routine and structure, and it might be a little bit different from yours. But children are so adaptable. They start to learn at nursery, this is what happens, and at home, this is what happens. So, with my child, he goes to a childminder, but he's also with me. The routine is slightly different, but he knows in one setting what to expect to what he is with me. Although we do try and keep the meal and sleep times the same between us. So it is really important, and it really does help, help with their settling in. So as a parent, I just wanted to share my story with you. And it's called My Child Doesn't Sleep. And that is exactly how I looked most days, like that lady in the picture. Because when I had my first child, I was really, really pleased the fact that from about 12 weeks she slept through, was brilliant at sleeping. The only time she didn't sleep at times was when she was teething, which was to be expected. I then had child number 2, a completely different story. He just couldn't settle himself. He didn't sleep. When I put him in his own room, he wasn't having any of it. I ended up, and it goes completely against the safe sleep slide that I have shared with you, but he ended up in my bed, because at that point I started working again, and I just felt so shattered that I just thought, do you know what? If it means me getting some sleep, he will sleep with me, because it was so tiring. When it got to about a year, people said, oh, it get better, but with him, it wasn't getting any better. He was still waking up. And there's nothing worse than broken sleep, is there? You just feel like you can't function properly. So I admitted defeat, and I got in contact with the community nurse, and I just said to her, I'm struggling. I'm not getting sleep. I don't really know what to do with him. And so she came and visited me and gave me some advice. And I just wanted to share it with you in case you're going through a very similar journey to what I did. She asked me what I was doing. I said, well, when he wakes up, I either give him a dummy, or sometimes I'll just cuddle him and put him back. But if he doesn't settle, like at night, sometimes I'll bring him downstairs, or if he's really bad, then he comes in the bed with me. And straight away, she said to me, stop there, Kelly. Listen to what you're saying. She said, the poor child has no consistency. You are giving him 4 different options. So how on earth is he supposed to know what to do when he wakes, when you're giving him all these options? Which was really true. I wasn't being consistent. I was just doing whatever I thought was right. And she also said to me, you're giving him, he's having all these meals, and you're giving him a full bottle of milk before he goes to bed. She said to me, imagine you having a Christmas dinner, for example, and then going upstairs and going to sleep on it. That is what you are doing with him. So I took this advice on board, and she said to me, just be aware it takes 3 to 5 days to break a habit. Well, the first night I did as she said. I decided, she said, choose out of those 4 what you're going to do. So I said, I don't want to leave him to cry. I'm just going to get him out of the cot, give him a cuddle for a few minutes, and then put him back. So she said, okay, if that's the option you're deciding, you have to stick with that, and he's not allowed out the bedroom. So day 1, 2.5 hours I was up with him, up and down. Then he cried a bit, then back in I went, cuddle. Then he cried again, then back in I went, left. And this just repeated. By day 4, I admit, I was literally ready to give up. It was awful. I was tired. I felt it wasn't working. I didn't particularly like her at that point either. I thought, I bet she hasn't got kids. And I was so frustrated. The one good thing is, though, he was having less milk. She said it was fine for him to have a bit of milk, but a lot less than what I was giving him, and do it downstairs instead of at bed, so I could clean his teeth and read a story, which was working. But it was still the getting up in the night. But my husband was very much, let's stick to it. She did say go to day 5. I am not kidding. On day 5, I don't know what happened, but we had a huge turnaround. He suddenly accepted that all he was going to get was a cuddle and be put down, to the point I could put him down without even crying, and he would sort himself out and settle himself to sleep, which was amazing. She did say to me it takes up to 2 weeks to form this new habit. So yeah, it did work. Having this just one option, it's like he suddenly knew that was all he was going to get, and he either had to accept it or not. And he did on day 5, after I was about to give it in. Funnily enough, he's been ill this week with an ear infection, and he's still stayed in his room, even though he's been a bit poorly. And there was one point where I just thought, I'm going to lay him in the bed just to monitor him with me for just this little bit. And do you know what? He would not accept being in the bed. He wanted to go back in his cot. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not going to kid myself. There will be days when he wakes up because he's teething or he has sleep regression. I do get that. I just have to remember I have to stick to one thing and stick to the routine. As long as I do that, I hopefully can't go wrong. So I just wanted to share that with you because it was a real learning curve for me. And sometimes when you're in the situation, you just can't see it from a logical point of view, especially when you're sleep deprived. But yeah, if anyone wants to ever talk to me about some of the, because she did give me other advice and guidance. So if ever, anyone wants to talk to me about this, then please feel free to contact me. Hello, I'm back on the screen now. I haven't been videoing myself on each slide just because I feel like it is a distraction. But on this particular slide, I just wanted to share me on a video just to explain about this 12-month house visitor review. So before your child is 12 months, you will receive a health questionnaire through the post. So I'm just going to show you now. I hope you can see this. They come together. So you get this, I don't know if you can see it, a 10-month questionnaire. And then you also get a 12-month questionnaire. It's all handwritten and it has questions in you have to answer. It's a bit like a tick thing, yes, sometimes, or not yet. So if you can see there, it asks you statements. You have to tick yes, sometimes, not there. And you have to get that ready before they come out to visit you in your home. And it's just really to see like how your baby's developing, if there's any concerns you have. There's boxes you can complete, what you really enjoy about your child. It was a bit strange really, they sent me the 10 months and the 12 months because by the time they saw me it was 12 months, so the 10-month one I felt was a bit out of date, but it's fine. So yeah, and then they go through this with you and look at the development and they sort of score it. And if there is any concerns, if you're thinking, well, I don't know, for example, my child's not progressing in the problem solving area, they can look at ways to support you and maybe work with you on it to help. Not all children develop the same or at the same pace. I've got two children that have developed very differently. My first child, for example, didn't walk till she was 15 months. My second child was walking by 1. A massive difference, 5 months, isn't it, in development? But they're all going to get there at some point. So try not to worry if they're not yet at what they what the statement says, because it's all part of just monitoring and supporting them. And then I've just put a picture of the red book, which again you'll need at your health visit appointment. And I think, if I remember right, I think they also weigh them on that visit as well. So here are some under 2 activity ideas. So I haven't really written anything on the slide. I just thought pictures say it all. So I've just found some pictures to show you of ideas that you could do with under 2s. There's many different things we tend to do in the yellow room. So if ever you're stuck with ideas, please ask us because we're always planning. We always are putting things on our social media so you can see the children actually doing activities. We do tend to use Pinterest quite a lot to get ideas. I do love those tough trays. Can you see in the top with the pasta? I've actually bought one myself, which is in the garage. As my little one is 1, he's putting everything in his mouth. So when I put stuff in the tough tray for him, I make sure it's edible to begin with because I know what he's like. And also because he has an allergy, I have to make sure what I'm putting in doesn't contain milk or egg. But good ones that you could put in tough trays, like they've got pasta, you could put corn flour, you could do Cheerios. I know one of our staff members blended down Cheerios, and it's actually like if you've got quite a lot of them, it turns into like a powdered sand. And with children putting sand and things in their mouth, at least that's edible. So you could do things like that. Children love singing and dance. Reading is really good with your child, particularly in their communication literacy, as they begin to point to things, might sound out singular words. So there's lots and lots of ideas that you could do with your children. But like I said, please ask us for advice if you're getting stuck on anything, and we can support you, or maybe even put something together to help you further if you're struggling for activity ideas. Speech and communication. So this is a bit of just a basic guideline as to what sounds and communications your little ones will be doing. So when they're first born, the first few weeks, you might hear them making little sounds, little gurgles, cooing, and it's just them beginning to find their vocal cords and the sounds from within. When they get to around 16 weeks, it's lovely because you'll start to hear them laughing and giggling. It might be you tickle them or you pull a funny face, and there's nothing more, heartwarming than hearing that little giggle that they do. So that is usually around 16 weeks. Going on to the 6 to 9, between 6 and 9 months, you then find that they begin to babble. It will make absolutely no sense at all what they're doing, but again, they are just, they're developing, they're feeling their tongue in their mouth, they're making these sounds, they're exploring, and it's lovely to hear this little baby jargon, they call it. So when they get to 6 to 11 months, they will begin to learn to understand the word stop. Now, we don't use the word no in Little Angels because we feel that's quite negative, saying no all the time. So we just say the word stop. Now, you will find if you're saying stop to your child that they will stop and they look at you and they will listen, and they might, stop for a little second, but 2 seconds later they'll probably continue what they're doing. So they're beginning to understand the word, but they aren't just following through the action quite yet. First words begin by the time the baby is around a year old. So some of the most sort of popular words you tend to get is mama, dada, bye, hi. And all these little words, they tend to repeat quite a lot. And their words won't be perfect because they're learning them and they're learning how the pronunciation of it. And you might suddenly find that, one day they might suddenly say car, or so all these little words, they start to develop, comes over time, and you might only get 1 or 2 to begin with, and those they will sort of repeat quite a lot. And by the time they're 1, they tend to follow instructions that are very simple. So they'll be trying to speak to or trying to communicate, whether it's verbally or through actions, but it might be you say, could you go and get the ball, and point to it, and then they walk over and get it and bring it back to you. So straight away they are beginning to learn these very simple instructions. Now this is just a guidance, so if your child is doing more than this or less than this, then that is absolutely fine. Children don't develop in all areas at the same time, so they might be not doing some of these things, but physically might be going above and beyond. So if you do have any concerns, then obviously please talk to us, but this is just guidance. Encouraging independence. So I've got lots of lovely images from little angels here. Letting them feed themselves is the first point on here, and as you can see, we always provide the little ones with their own utensils and their own bowls, and they might need support with feeding themselves, but we also encourage them to have a go, whether they use the spoon or they use their fingers. Any way they manage to feed themselves is great, and it's learning life skills that they're going to take forward. And I do think when they're all sitting together with each other, they are, in their little social group, and they learn from one another. So it's really good to see that this independence is beginning at a meal time. I think it's also really important that we show them how to do things and then let them have a go at it. So it might be, that we paint on a bit of paper, and then they watch, and then we hand them the paintbrush and they have a go. if they, they're following this and they're having a go and you're praising them, they're learning that they are following these simple instructions and they can do something, and it's an achievement for them, which is great to see. Especially under the age of 1, you find they're pulling themselves up and climbing on things, an excellent skill to have. Obviously, if it's not safe, we encourage them to stop, but we also encourage them to take that little bit of risk and be there for them to support them so that they know we're there, and we're helping them. And they're getting skills of balance when they're learning to pull themselves up, particularly when they begin that walking, they're just trying to get those steps and they're not quite there, they're a bit wobbly. We do have walkers which are great, where they can do it on their own because they've got that support of a walker. I know I had one at home for my little one, which really, really built his confidence to then begin to walk on his own. And we also help them walk by holding their hands, like you can see this little girl below, aided walking, where we support them, and eventually you go from 2 hands to 1 hand, and then you kind of gradually go away from it, and then suddenly they're walking. So it is lovely to see them gaining this independence. And you might find, particularly with my little one being 14 months now, he wants to walk everywhere. And if I put him in the pushchair, we have a little, he gets very frustrated with me because he doesn't want to go in the pushchair anymore. But it's all these skills that they're learning and they want to do, which is great. It's great to see. So that is the end of the advice and guidance for under 2s, and I hope you found it really useful, some of the tips and advice I have given. If you think of anything that perhaps I haven't mentioned on here, or you have any further questions on, then please don't hesitate to either ring the nursery and ask for Kelly, or you can email me. That is absolutely fine, and I can put something together for you or give you that advice. But I hope, like I said, you found it useful and enjoyed it. So thank you very much.